This is the Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Bruschi and continuing coverage of the case against Bryan Kohberger.
Yeah, and with that, obviously for a while, Bryan Kohberger was studying under Dr. Catherine Ramsland, and Howard Bloom had some reporting about that just the other day, and Catherine has responded to that reporting. I know she responded to Brian Enton, and we reported on that the other day. She also responded to us, and I noticed this yesterday, like 4 days after she sent it to me, because I don't check Facebook messages all that often. And here's what she had to say about the Howard Bloom reporting, basically stating that he believed that Kohberger may have been doing this to kind of show off to Catherine. Now, that part is not necessarily being disputed. The part that's being disputed is about Catherine's interaction with Kohberger before and after the crimes. I just want to read what she sent to us. I heard your podcast. I have recently made a statement in response to Bloom's allegations because it's not about Kohberger, it's about me. I had no email correspondence with Bryan Kohberger while he was at WSU. He has not been in touch with with me since his arrest. I called his parents as a gesture of kindness, but I do not advise them about the case. I did not call them hours after the arrest, as Bloom claims. I have never talked to his sister about any book. I did not broker anything regarding a lawyer. I have not been invited by the Kohbergers to Idaho. I don't know where they'll be staying. I don't know who Bloom's source is or why he reports information for which he has no proof. And Howard has replied as well on his Twitter, kind of walking some of that back to saying it's a hypothesis. But that's Catherine's response to all of that. If we're just going back to the hypothesis, take all of the pieces of the reporting of her communication out of this because she says she didn't have it. The idea that Kohberger might have been doing this and maybe part of the motive was to still be the smartest person in the room. I don't know it was a connection of romance or like I want to do this for a woman as we would have seen with like the Reagan attempted assassination. But I think it was more what Howard is saying. It was, look how smart I am too, Catherine. Look, I'm just as smart. I did one better. I didn't just interview the killer like she did with BTK. I became the killer. Not that he would say this and she'd go, "Oh, good job, Bryan. Well, I'm so glad you've took everything I said to heart." Not at all. But I think it'd be a quiet thing that he would get, where he would get his, in the words of Karen Reed, ego bath, because other people would be talking and teaching about this perfect killing that they never found the guy for. But they eventually obviously did. What do you think about that element of his reporting?
I'm not really buying it. I think that the rage and anger and everything that built up that would lead you to the point of massacring these kids so far outweighed some sort of, see, I want to show you how great I am.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't think that was what was flowing through his brain at the time. Could it have been an ancillary,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be as great as BTK and Bundy in his mind in terms of what he accomplished in this murder and what I think could have been preparation for more. I think it could have been an ancillary thought, but to somehow leap to, I'm doing this for my teach.
Mm-hmm.
Nah, I'm just not buying it. There's just way too much passion and hate and anger in this thing.
It is. I mean, it kind of plays into the whole time I've been saying, I feel like he's incelly, but I feel like this was more of to have the experience to do this than it was for anything else. So he could go back and so he could bask in the coverage of this thing and really feel something like he made some sort of difference. That's why I felt like his reporting, his hypothesis, I didn't feel like it was that far off the mark as being a possibility here. I'd love to know where he's getting this, or if it is just that, if it's all just kind of his own hypothesis. His reporting's usually pretty good, and it usually does pan out. But it's interesting now to see the both sides of this from Catherine's point of view and from Howard's. Catherine being called as a witness possibly in this, do you think that could be a possibility, just considering, she was his teacher. There'd be some observations there on behavior. Not that she was communicating. She's clearly said that she was not. But observations of how he handled the material that was being put out there in relation to what he's alleged to have done. What are your thoughts?
I think the biggest, thing about this, in other words, the biggest thing that gives some credence to what Bloom said in terms of there being some communication between them, even though she's come out and said, no way.
Mm-hmm.
And she wants to make that very clear.
Yeah.
Why is she being called? Because just how he would have acted in class or communications she might have had with him,
Yeah.
that could be interesting to the FBI and could, speak to motive and things possibly. But does she know so much more than we think she knows?
Mm-hmm.
And is that why the government is calling her? Because they've interviewed her and they know there's more.
I don't know. I mean, I do in no way, shape, or form do I think she knew anything about the crime, like he was going to do anything. Nothing like that. But but just behavioral observations of him before the crime while he was a student. Did he stand out more than others in terms of interest in specific areas that maybe were kind of odd, that maybe others didn't necessarily naturally gravitate to in terms of interest and passion? We know the questions he put out there and the DeSales project he was doing. It was all very, very much focused on your emotions, how you felt during the crime, how you felt after the crime, all these things seeming to try to learn to identify who or what he should feel while doing something like this. And it's not the first time he's recognized he doesn't have feelings or doesn't have emotions or empathy. And this quest to seemingly find it. I would be so curious to hear her observations of the time of having him as a student.
Yeah, I would be curious. And I think we're going to hear about that because I think she's writing a book. But my question would be, is there more in terms of any correspondence he might have had with her, not that she had with him, or anything along that line?
Yeah.
And I always wondered if that's where Bloom kind of catapulted this from, seeing her on that witness list, because I'm not sure that just her observations of him all those years ago, I'm not sure they'd be able to get that in. I guess it depends what she says, but would there be papers? Remember, we saw the paper that I find most interesting on how to conduct a crime scene investigation.
Yeah.
That came out, and that was so interesting. Did he do any papers for her that, focused in on some area of import here?
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see how it plays out and if she's even called.
Yeah, I would be very much too. But that was her response to that, so we know where she stands. The search history, another thing that we learned about, which we've all been wondering and kind of thinking, oh, this will be good. It is. It's good. It's, not good in a good way, but it has a lot of in it that seems to play along with the Kohberger mindset, allegedly. Drugged, passed out, Ted Bundy, those are just some of the things, and intermingled with porn. One could say, is this weird? He's a 20-something college guy and he's looking up weird porn. I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends what you're into. That's pretty sick stuff, and certainly does go along with, this whole thing. Obviously, there wasn't an SA that took place in the house with the murders, but clearly this did seem to target someone that there seemed to be some sort of sexual attraction to, or that whole incel type thinking with the people that he targeted. Do you think that has any legs to it?
Oh, I think it has legs. Of course, the defense will easily be able to divert that search history, saying, listen, he was getting a PhD in criminology. And I got to tell you, Tony, I think if anyone looked at your phone and my phone, what in the hell?
Yeah.
Because of everything we search and look at in preparation for our shows and so on. So, but this is the difference. We're not on trial for massacring for people.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of taking the totality of everything that has happened and then looking at his search history. It really puts a view on it that, geez, he was looking at porn with somebody that was passed out drugged or
Mhm.
otherwise unconscious. And who did he choose to attack?
Yeah.
Exactly that. And I think a jury will be able to easily make that roadmap stick.
It's a weird. I don't want to like dive into it too much, but do you think the intent was to take this to an essay when he was there, and it all fell apart because he wasn't expecting all the people there?
1,000%.
Yeah.
This was 1,000%, in my opinion, all about gratification.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, I think Kaylee being in bed with her completely ruined all of his plans in that
Yeah.
area. Thank God. I
Yeah.
mean, thank God and then not thank God, right? Because
Mhm.
of poor Kaylee. But I just mean, yeah, it changed and diverted his plan, I think.
Yeah. 23 times pinging near that house before the killings. Do you think he planned it for that night? Do you think it was, okay, tonight's the night, I'm going to get there and this is going down? Or do you think it could have been one of any of the many, many times he circled that house, and this just happened to have been the night that he got his courage up to go in and do what he allegedly did?
I think he had planned this and thought about this for so long, at least 8 months, right? That
Yeah.
was when the K bar was originally purchased. And I think he's thought about it well before that.
Hmm.
And finally, Tony, he had the courage. Finally, that impulse control took off, and he was able to get the courage to go in and do this. But I think he was obviously very well prepared. Look at how he was dressed. He was
Hmm.
able to somehow defrock all of that clothing. This was very well planned. And but for Xana being up
Hmm.
on her phone, uh,
Yeah.
TikTok, I believe it was, Instagramming,
Yeah.
and coming up those steps, and her really derailing his plans
Hmm.
to make his escape. Um, maybe he wouldn't have dropped that knife sheath,
Yeah.
right?
I
Middle
mean,
of it.
it doesn't seem like genius planning in terms of knowing who's in the house and what you're walking into. It seems like he really rolled the dice there. Like, maybe there'll be people here, maybe they won't. I don't know if he's had blinders on, thinking there can't be anybody else in this house. I don't know why you would think that, but I don't know. Maybe it just had to be a roll of the dice because you really didn't know who or what was in that house at any given time with the amount of people, and
Oh,
his impulse just took over.
he knew. I mean, there was a DoorDash delivery that he saw. He waited for that guy to leave. He knew
Yeah.
somebody was up. I think this is part of the excitement
Yeah.
of being able to control that situation, being smarter than everybody. And it really is just like Bundy's situation, which he had searched
Hmm.
and knew about at the Chi Omega house.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly, you know, thinking no matter what, who was awake, what the obstacle was, he was going to conquer that situation. And I think it was exciting for him.
It's messed up when you, especially when you put everything together, the phone calls, the picture after, and everything that we know. And this is we only know a fraction. There's so much more I think that'll be coming out in court because so much has been under seal. And who knows? August, it's not far away, but it's far away. And there's a lot that I'm guessing will be dropping between now and then. Wondering still if he's going to plead out if the cards get too tough against him. Do you think anything would put him over that line to try and do that?
No way.
No.
He's eaten this up. He's not going to plea. He knows that even if he does get a death sentence 20 years from now, when it's the time, who knows what will happen.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Hanson.
Yeah.
Look at all of that, band of murdering, heathens. They were sentenced to death, and then their sentences were all commuted. And so he knows how long this process takes, and I think he's going to stick with it.
I
This
think
is part of him being famous.
it's part of the ride, and I think he's enjoying the ride in whatever way he's enjoying the ride.
Want true crime coverage all day, every day? Press subscribe now to the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today and get the latest cases delivered right to your feed.